Right. Okay.
Okay, it's being done.
Let's start.
Jai.
Hare Krishna. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kada Mayam Tadanti Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Gurun Jiyutapatakamanam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Sya Shri Rupam Sakrajadam Sahaganana Raghunatanvitam Tam Sajivam Satvedam Swavadudam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitam Shya He Krishna Karuna Sindho Bandho Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Sapta Kanjana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanushtute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanjakalpatarubhyasya Kripa Sindhubhayeva cha Patitanam Pavanibhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare
Hare. Jai. So this evening we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 6, Text 32, and I've been told if there is enough time to cover Text 33. We'll see how it goes with the with the purport, and we might cover 33. But for now, we're on Canto 2, Chapter 6, Text 32, Purusha Shukta confirmed. Srijamita tuktaham haroharati tadvasaha Vishvam Purusha Rupena Padipati Trisakti. Translation. By his will I create, Lord Shiva destroys, and he himself, in his eternal form as the personality of Godhead, maintains everything. He is the powerful controller of these three energies. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. The conception of one without a second is clearly confirmed here. So one without a second. It's maybe we can break down the purport to almost each sentence, because there's a lot of technical stuff that Prabhupada has invested in this purport. This is a particularly complex chapter, Purusha Shukta. It's more or less, we could say, confirming that the Lord Sri Krishna is the absolute supreme personality of Godhead, in a sense to kind of encapsulate that shloka from the Bhagavatam. Krishna's tu Bhagavan Swayam. There may be so many incarnations, there may be so many manifestations of the Lord and so many avatars, but Krishna's tu Bhagavan Swayam. So really, the whole argument of this chapter, or the whole debate, if you want, is to confirm with the doubters who exactly is the Supreme Lord, and is to give scriptural evidence and logical evidence also There's logic, there's reason, there's argument. So here in the first sentence, Prabhupada is saying the conception of one without a second is clearly confirmed here. So what does that mean? One. So there's one, that's the Supreme Lord, and there's no second. There simply is no other, there's no other God. There may be so many incarnations. So to avoid confusion, so many people have different ideas of who is God, who is an avatar, and who is the demigod, and who is this and who is that. Lord Brahma, he's speaking here, he's speaking to Narada, and he's explaining to his son just exactly what is the position of the Supreme Lord. And we'll go into more detail later on. There's some quotations here from Bhagavad Gita that Prabhupada has put in, and we can examine them during the course. Now, it's not, this part of the Bhagavatam is not Leela Bhagavatam, where it's telling stories. It's technical, it's confined, not exactly to simply just debating about scripture, but it's more or less debating who is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, confirming in a Shastric way that it is Supreme Lord is Krishna. The one Lord is Vasudeva, and only by his different energies and expansions are different manifestations, both in the material and the spiritual worlds, maintained. So he's the Supreme Lord of all. The spiritual world, the material world, it makes no difference. In the material world also, Lord Vasudeva is everything. As stated in Bhagavad Gita 7:19, Vasudeva Savarmiti, everything is Vasudeva only. Everything. Krishna is in every atom. Nothing exists without him. If you take away Krishna, there's nothing. It simply is not there. In the Vedic hymns also, the same Vasudeva is held to be supreme. It is said in the Vedas, Vasudevat paro brahman na chanyo rito sitattvataha. In fact, there is no greater truth than Vasudeva. And Lord Krishna affirms the same truth in Bhagavad Gita, Matapara taram nanyat. There is nothing above me, Lord Krishna. So the conception of oneness, as overly stressed by the impersonalist, is also accepted by the personalist devotee of the Lord. The difference is, and this is the difference, and it's a subtle difference, and it tends at times to be confusing, but this has been explained by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and where Prabhupada is saying here, the difference is that the impersonalist denies the personality in the ultimate issue, whereas the devotee gives more importance to the personality of Godhead. Achinta Beda Beda Tattva. It's the same time one and the same time different. Srimad Bhagavatam explains this truth in the verse under discussion. Lord Vasudeva is one without a second, but because he is all powerful, he can expand himself as well as display his omnipotencies. This is where it can be bewildering, because we tend to not be able to relate because our consciousness is limited, and we're not free from the dualities of material or spiritual. We're not free from dualities of the whole material conception. So we tend to think of what we can understand in our mind of what the Supreme Lord is, and we create this imaginary idea of God. Just like, for the most part, the Abrahamic religions, they are completely and totally impersonal. They may speak of God, and God is supreme, and God is this, and God is all powerful, and so on and so forth. But when it comes down to the actual personal conception of God, there is no idea. In fact, in the two major Abrahamic religions, Islam and Judaism, you can be stoned to death for imagining that there's a personality to God. Christianity has some concept that, yes, God is a form, God is a person, but they have no idea what that form is. It is described in the Bible, for example, that Jesus is sitting at the right hand of the Father. But then they say, well, God is powerful, God is omniscient, God is the light, God is this, God is that, God is the other. So at best, they can refer to the Brahma Jyoti. But when it comes down to a personality and the description of a personality of God, God is a person, that is only there in the Vedic scriptures. It's not a criticism of the Abrahamic religions, it's just a statement of fact. It's not there in the scripture. So they say Jesus left a prayer, Our Father who art in heaven. He's speaking of our Father who art in heaven. And he's not speaking of my Father, but the Christian, and Jesus said, do not adore me, adore the one who sent me. But the Christians say, no, Jesus is God. So it's very, very confusing. What to speak of when we're getting into the details of the actual personality of Godhead. Of course, a devotee doesn't need to be convinced that the Supreme Person is actually a person with a personality. That's why we say the Supreme Personality of Godhead. We all have our own individual personality, but God, Lord Krishna, he has his own personality also. He has his likes, he has his dislikes. Everything that is manifested in our personality and our minute personality is also manifested in the Supreme Lord. He is all powerful, he can expand himself as well as display his omnipotencies. The Lord is described here as omnipotent by three energies, Tri Shakti Drik. So primarily his three energies as internal, marginal, and external. So the internal is the spirit, is the spiritual potency, of which we are a part and parcel. We're a part and parcel. We have the same spiritual potency as the Supreme Lord, just in a minute quantity. And then there's the marginal, there's the border, whether we're drifting and then drifting into or out of the material energy. We have the choice. So that is the choice that we all have. And then there's the external, which is completely and totally the material energy, of which is vast in itself. It's a quarter the size of the spiritual world. This external energy is also displayed in three modes: goodness, passion, and ignorance. So we have a mixture of all three. And then that mixture of all three, as Prabhupada explains, 3 times 3 is 9, 9 times 9 is 81, and so on and so forth. So there's so many different personalities, and sometimes we're in the mode of goodness, sometimes we're in the mode of passion, sometimes we're in the mode of ignorance. That is our nature. So our objective and our goal is to rise above this and to become Visuddha Sattva, completely and totally above everything, and become completely and totally in the mode of goodness from a spiritual perspective. Similarly, the internal potency is also displayed in 3 modes: Samvit, Sandini, and Hladini. So everything in the material world is exactly a reflection, a perverted reflection of what's going on in the spiritual world. Just like I have a form, I have the shape, the temporary form, which is there. But this form is temporary. But in the spiritual world, there is an eternal form that we all have, of which we have forgotten. And that form is there right now as we are talking. As we are sitting here in Eldoret, that form exists. But because we are covered, then we cannot see. That form will manifest as we develop, as we grow in our internal relationship with the Supreme Lord through the mercy of the spiritual master. The marginal potencies, or the living entities, is also spiritual. Prakratim vidi me param. But the living entities are never equal to the Lord. The Lord is Narasta Samya Atisaya. In other words, no one is greater or than or equal to the Supreme Lord. So the living entities, including even such great personalities as Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva, are all subordinate to the Lord. In the material world also, in his eternal form of Vishnu, he maintains and controls all the affairs of the demigods, including Brahma and Shiva. So there's another quote, which is in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. If you could kindly allow me to bring it up. This is also describing the Hladini Shakti, the Samvit, and everything like that. Radha and Krishna are one. This is from the Adi Leela, chapter 4, verse 56. Radha and Krishna are one and the same, but they have assumed two bodies, thus they enjoy each other, tasting the mellows of love. And that applies to all of us. That applies to all of us. We are all part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, but we assume different bodies in order to render service to the Supreme Lord. In the spiritual world, in Goloka Vrindavan, some living entities, they manifest in the form of a cow. They might manifest in the form of a tree. They manifest in this form or that form or the other form. Some are presented as the parents of the Supreme Lord, the sons and daughters of the Supreme Lord. When Krishna was living in Dwarka, he had so many wives. He had so many sons, so many daughters. He was behaving like a family man. So according to our own desire in which we can serve, we want to serve, then that desire is manifested. There is no limit to the way in which we can serve. So the purport to that verse, Radha and Krishna are one and the same, but they have assumed two bodies. Thus they enjoy each other, tasting the mellows of love. Prabhupada's purport, the two transcendentalists, Radha and Krishna, are a puzzle to materialists. The above description of Radha and Krishna from the diary of Srila Rupa Goswami, Srila Swarup Damodar Goswami, is a condensed explanation. But one needs great spiritual insight to understand the mystery of these two personalities. And remember, it was Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu who came to give us the mood of Radha. This is our right. He came to preach the love of Godhead. He came to spread the holy name, of which the whole spiritual world and Goloka Vrindavan and all the pastimes of the Supreme Lord are contained within the holy names. As we are chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, the Lord is actually manifesting in his pastimes, right into our ears, right before our eyes, if we have the vision to see. And if we have the determination to put the whole process directly into a 100% focus. One is enjoying in two, Prabhupada continues in the purport. Sri Krishna is the potent factor and Srimati Radharani is the internal potency. According to Vedanta philosophy, there is no difference between the potent and the potency. They are identical. We cannot differentiate between one and the other any more than we can separate fire from heat. And this applies to us also. We cannot be separated from Krishna any more than you can separate fire from heat. But because of this temporary illusory position that we're in, we cannot see that. But the more we engage in the process of sadhana bhakti, the more this illusion is removed, and then we can actually engage to the fullest possible potential. Right now, even as devotees, we're not reaching our fullest potential because we haven't reached a stage of perfection. But when we engage with the process, that potential will be manifested automatically. We don't have to do anything extraneously in order to help that to come about. We simply have to follow the process, engage in the chanting, listen to the sound vibration of the holy names of the Lord, complete and total dependence on the holy names, and then everything itself will just manifest. So Prabhupada goes on to say, and this is a very nice line, everything in the absolute is inconceivable in relative existence. Everything is inconceivable in our current state. Relative existence means material existence. Therefore, in relative cognizance, in relative understanding, in other words, it is very difficult to assimilate this truth of the oneness between the potent and the potency. The philosophy of inconceivable oneness and difference propounded by Lord Chaitanya is the only source of understanding for such intricacies of transcendence. In fact, Prabhupada says, Radharani is the internal potency of Sri Krishna, and she eternally intensifies the pleasure of Sri Krishna. Impersonalists cannot understand this without the help of a Maha Bhagavat devotee. So here we come back again to the main point that is always emphasized throughout the Vedic literatures. Tadvidi pranipatena pariprasnena sevaya. Approach the spiritual master, inquire from him submissively, render service unto him. He can give you knowledge because he has seen the truth. This is what it takes. Complete and total surrender at the lotus feet of the Mahabhagavat. Prabhupada goes on to say, the very name Radha suggests that Srimati Radharani is eternally the topmost mistress of the comforts of Sri Krishna. And this next part is so important. This is where we come in. As such, she is the medium transmitting the living entity service to Sri Krishna. So without going through Radha, we cannot approach Krishna. And she's the topmost. She is the one who knows to perfection what is going to please Krishna. She anticipates Krishna's mood long before Krishna even thinks it. And then she puts that mood into practice and she presents the whole atmosphere so as Krishna can enjoy. Krishna's only business is to enjoy. And we are the enjoyed. So as long as we can serve in that mood, then we can actually be happy. As soon as we try to enjoy in separation from Krishna, or we want to be the Ishvara, we want to be the controller, then of course we completely fail. So the whole material world is completely upside down compared to the spiritual world. But we're imagining that it is real. We're imagining that what we see, what is manifest before our eyes, this is the real deal. So we go along with that because we have millions and millions and trillions of years of brainwashing to convince us that the material world is the reality. When in fact the opposite, we have to forget everything we've learned about our existence in the material sense and focus on this philosophy of dedicating our lives to the very name of Radha and Krishna. As such, she is the medium transmitting the living entity service to Sri Krishna. Devotees in Vrindavan therefore seek the mercy of Srimati Radharani in order to be recognized as loving servitors of Krishna. So those of us who have been fortunate enough, and it is a great, great, great fortune indeed, to have visited Vrindavan, we can confirm this. Everywhere you go in Vrindavan, Jai Radhe, Jai Radhe, Jai Radhe, Jai Radhe. They hardly even mention the name of Krishna. It's Jai Radhe because it's through Radharani's mercy that we can get to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself. And Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he introduced this philosophy for all of us. So he was the most he's known as Patita Pavan. He's the most munificent incarnation of the Supreme Lord, more merciful than Krishna himself, because he's coming in the mood of Radha to bring them all these souls back to Krishna so as we can serve and manifest our original Leela with Krishna. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu personally approaches the fallen conditioned souls of the Iron Age to deliver the highest principle of transcendental relationships with the Lord. The activities of Lord Chaitanya are primarily in the role of the pleasure-giving portion of his internal potency. The absolute personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, is the omnipotent form of transcendental existence, knowledge, and bliss in full. His internal potency is exhibited first as Sat, or existence, or in other words, as the portion that expands the existence function of the Lord. When the same potency displays full knowledge, it is called Chit, or Samvit, which expands the transcendental forms of the Lord. Finally, when the same potency plays as a pleasure-giving medium, it is known as Hladini, or the transcendental blissful potency. Thus, the Lord manifests his internal potency in three transcendental divisions. So this is the most amazing aspect of everything to do with Krishna consciousness. That it's right there in front of us, right there before us, and all we have to do is take advantage of the association of devotees, take full and total surrender to the lotus feet of the spiritual master, and dedicate our lives to serving him. Because he has seen the truth, he can give it to us. Like we can look at that verse, 7:19 from the Gita. After many, many births and deaths, he who is actually in knowledge surrenders unto me, knowing me to be the cause of all causes and all that is. Such a great soul is very rare. So Prabhupada is quoting 7:19, Vasudeva Savamiti. Everything is Vasudeva only. So when we keep saying that this is very rare, it's not just something that we're whimsically conjuring up. Krishna himself is saying this. And Krishna himself is saying that we have gone through many, many births. And then one who is actually in knowledge surrenders unto me. This is the final conclusion. This is the final birth. This is the final stage by which we can get out of this temporary, illusory existence into which we have all fallen and to which we are totally dedicated. That is the ironic thing. And the more we are dedicated to this temporary, illusory conception of life, the more we suffer. And then at the end of this life, then it's all over and we've gained nothing, absolutely nothing. Krishna says, knowing me to be the cause of all causes and all that is, such a great soul is very rare. Samahatma Sadurlabha. And this is a fact. Prabhupada says, the living entity, while executing devotional service or transcendental rituals after many, many births, may actually become situated in transcendental pure knowledge that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the ultimate goal of spiritual realization. In the beginning of spiritual realization, while one is trying to give up one's attachment to materialism, there is some leaning towards impersonalism. And this is the disease. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pasaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Nitya Namine. Namaste Sarasvati Devi Nirvishesha Sunyavadi. Nirvishesha Sunyavadi. Prabhupada has come to get rid of voidism and impersonalism. We have to get used to the idea that we're dealing with a person. God is a person. We have a personality. We have a relationship with him. And when we connect with God as a person, then everything just falls into place. That's why Prabhupada emphasized over and over and over again the Mayavadis, the impersonalists. He was hammering home on that point constantly. It was years and years and years of reading Prabhupada's books until I realized Prabhupada is talking about me. He's not talking about some group over there of impersonalists. He's talking about me. I'm the impersonalist because I'm not recognizing my relationship with the Supreme Lord. And Prabhupada is trying to drum it through into my thick skull that you're the impersonalist. And get rid of this impersonalism and focus on Krishna as a person who's your best friend. There's nobody greater than Krishna, and just completely and totally depend on him. That's why Prabhupada is saying here, in the beginning of spiritual realization, one is trying to give up one's attachment to materialism. There is some leaning towards impersonalism. But when one is further advanced, he can understand that there are activities in spiritual life, and these activities constitute devotional service. Do we have to render service? That's the whole point, is rendering service. So this is the training for when we go back to the spiritual world. And when we go back to the spiritual world, then we're introduced straight, directly into Krishna's service, and we are trained by the gopis, by the Shakis, how to render service to Krishna. Prema Bhakti. It's Prema Bhakti. This is it. This is our goal. This is our objective. This is what Lord Chaitanya came to give us. Direct service with the Srimati Radharani and the gopis and the Shakis. So we're really reaching for a very high platform, and there's no reason why we can't achieve it. If we surrender to the process, this is what Prabhupada has come to give us. Realizing this, Prabhupada says, he becomes attached to the Supreme Personality of Godhead and surrenders unto him. At such a time, one can understand that Lord Sri Krishna's mercy is everything. And that's it. And that really is the essence of everything. Lord Sri Krishna's mercy is everything. And it is only by his mercy that we have come to devotional service. And it's only by his mercy that we will reach the goal and reach the ultimate objective of love of God. Completely, we can't do it by ourselves. We cannot. It's completely and totally not possible. But by his mercy, and that he is the cause of all causes, and that this material manifestation is not independent from him. He realizes the material world to be a perverted reflection of spiritual variegatedness. Just like there is variety here in the material world, there's so much variety, but there's also a greater degree of variety in the spiritual world. And realizes that in everything there is a relationship with the Supreme Lord Krishna. Thus he thinks of everything in relation to Vasudeva or Sri Krishna. Such a universal vision of Vasudeva precipitates one's full surrender to the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna as the highest goal. Such surrendered great souls are very rare. And that's a fact. Samahatma Sudurlabha. So do we want to be in the category of the very rare, or do we want to be in the category of the common man who just goes along and just acts on the impulses of the senses? Or do we want to make some effort to control our senses, to control our mind, and to surrender everything to the Supreme Lord? Everything. If you read the Nectar of Devotion, which is a very deep book, and unfortunately, I don't read it often enough. But there are so many moods in there, moods that we would think that would normally be negative moods, be material moods. But they're described as these are the moods of the gopis. There's envy, there's hate, there's jealousy, there's love, there's anger. All of these are described in the Nectar of Devotion. So everything that we experience here in this material world is exhibited in the spiritual world. But it's a perverted reflection. So it's not that we just negate personality by surrendering to Krishna. It's only by surrendering to Krishna that we actually have a personality that can be manifested, which is real. Everything else is an illusion. I was reading an article in a newspaper today where it said that, it's quite a fact, that everybody who knows us, mother, father, sons, daughter, wife, husband, friend, society, whatever, everybody sees us as a different person. Everybody will see us in a different way. It's not that everybody will see me in the same way. People will relate to me in all kinds of different ways. So that doesn't mean that I have millions and millions of personalities. It's just, it depends on the way people view us. There's variety. So there's variety in relationship to the way people are having a relationship with me, but imagine the variety in the way in relationships exist with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is unlimited. It's unlimited. And that can change at any time. Like it is described elsewhere in Chaitanya Charitamrita, I was reading this afternoon, that Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma, when they were born, they didn't even know who they were. And they didn't even know at the time. This Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma. They didn't know their relationship with the Supreme Lord. It had to be taught to them. Gopishvara. I mean, there's no greater personality than Lord Shiva. We can't think of any higher. He's a wonderful devotee. But again, he had to learn the art of devotional service from Krishna. We all have to learn. So if we just surrender to the process, it becomes obvious what we need to do. It's not complicated. But then when we just knuckle down and just try to manifest these moods, they, by the mercy of the Lord, they will come. But if we try to do it by ourselves, by our own so-called intelligence or intellectual or academic capacity, it doesn't work. Prabhupada says, simple for the simple, complicated for the crooked. He would quote that shloka, that verse, not a shloka, very many times. Simple for the simple, complicated for the crooked. The process of devotional service is so easy. We were discussing this morning in Kasumu how when Prabhupada would start, when he started the movement in Tompkins Square Park and chanting under the tree, very famous tree in Tompkins Square Park, which started the whole process. Yadabar is now in Nairobi. The devotee who made all the movies about Prabhupada and his life and everything. He's now in Nairobi he's going to be there for a week and a week in Mombasa, and he's going to be giving Prabhupada Leela Katha. And he's a wonderful devotee, and he will explain, so many of the aspects of Prabhupada's Leela. He traveled with Prabhupada everywhere. His wife Vishaka also, who's temple president in the manor now, she traveled with Prabhupada extensively. And here we have this great opportunity of this wonderful personality in Kenya to share his realizations of his association with Prabhupada with us. But when he was chanting, when Srila Prabhupada was chanting under the tree, in the early days, nobody had a clue what was going on. But spontaneously, all these early devotees like Brahmananda and Gargamuni and Satrupa and Achyutananda, they were automatically attracted to Prabhupada. Automatically. They didn't know what it was all about. They had no idea. And in the early days, the devotees still had their attachments, and Prabhupada didn't emphasize the regulative principles or chanting 16 rounds a day or different things. So the devotees, after they would have morning class or whatever, they'd go to the coffee shop and have their donuts and their coffee. And Prabhupada would pass by and they'd hide under the table, to hide from Prabhupada because they were having their donuts and coffee. But then later, as things became a little more serious, Prabhupada introduced the regulative principles and introduced so many rules and regulations and doing this and doing that and offering and so on and so forth. But in the beginning, just to attract people, to get people out of the consciousness of this material, dogmatic world that we're all living in, Prabhupada was so liberal. So liberal. And Yadabar Prabhu, he'll be explaining all about this in his talks. He's going to do home programs. He's going to show the movie about Prabhupada that he made. I was very fortunate. I was at the premiere of that movie, which was shown first in San Jose in California, and I think it was 2018. And, that's it. If we dedicate our lives to serving Prabhupada, automatically we go to Krishna. Automatically. There's absolutely no way, because Prabhupada's mission was to save us from hell, save us from this unbelievable torment of this material world and just get out of it and no longer have anything to do with it. And so we have this opportunity. Let's take it to the full satisfaction. And I think maybe now we can move on to the next verse. So we'll cover 33. So for the next speaker, we'll be going into verse 34. My dear son, whatever you inquired from me, I have thus explained to you. And you must know for certain that whatever there is, either as cause or as effect, both in the material and spiritual worlds, is dependent on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This point again, everything. Imagine what an amazing, even from looking at it from a point of view of awe and reverence, what an amazing personality Krishna is, to be able to manifest this world, this material world that we can see, this galaxy that we can see, and all the planets and stars, and even he didn't even bother to create this. He gave the knowledge to Brahma, who manifested all of this indirectly. This is an indirect manifestation of the energy of the Supreme Lord, and that's the external energy. And when we can just look up the night sky and we just see the most amazing manifestation that we can't even conceive how it exists, how it's there. And we're a tiny, tiny little planet amongst all these galaxies and planets and stars and everything. And here we are fighting and killing each other over what? Purport by Prabhupada: the complete cosmic manifestation, complete cosmic situation, both in the material and in the spiritual manifestations of the energies of the Lord, is working and moving first as the cause and then as the effect. But the original cause is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Effects of the original cause become the causes of other effects, and thus everything, either permanent or temporary, is working as cause and effect. And because the Lord is the primeval cause of all persons and all energies, he is called the cause of all causes, as confirmed in Brahma Samhita as well as in Bhagavad Gita. Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchit Ananda Vigraha Anadir Adir Govinda Sarva Karna Karnam. It's worth reading that again because it's a very, very deep point. And when we're reading Prabhupada's books, we have to read Prabhupada's books more than once. Even the same verse, the same purport, everything is in Prabhupada's purports. Prabhupada says, we repeat, and because the Lord is the primeval cause of all persons and all energies, he is called the cause of all causes, as confirmed in Brahma Samhita. So he's the cause of all persons and all energies. Nothing exists without him. And in Bhagavad Gita, Aham Sarvasya Prabhavo. So the original primeval cause is Vigraha, the personal. And the impersonal spiritual effulgence, the Brahma Jyoti, is also an effect of the Supreme Brahman, Brahmano hi Pratishtam, Lord Krishna. So, again, everything comes back, everything boils down to the Supreme Personality of Godhead as being a person. And the vast majority of the world is denying the existence of God as a person. They have this idea of Ishvara, a big controller somewhere in the sky who pours down punishment or reward according to his mood, and is an old man with a big long beard and all this kind of stuff. There's no idea. And the whole of Western civilization is based on this misconception. And we are all in awe and reverence of Western civilization, which is completely and totally demoniac. So we have to learn how to unlearn everything that we've learned in order to become actual devotees. We really have to become almost like, I won't say stupid, but we almost have to become childlike in our approach to the philosophy in a way that we're just willing and ready to absorb everything, just like a child is asking a million questions a minute. My kids used to drive me mad. What is this? What is that? What is the other? But as a parent, you have to answer. So we have to become almost like childlike in our approach to spiritual life. So we want to learn more and more and more and more. And then we become absorbed in the philosophy till it becomes an intrinsic part of our existence, not something that's separate. Oh yeah, I'm going to the temple, I'm going to take darshan, I'm going to take my bead bag, I'm going to chant my japa. All these are like step by step, but then when it becomes just one consciousness and it's Krishna consciousness, then everything begins to fall into place. And it's wonderful when that happens. As Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, and it's it certainly applies to me, when oh when will that day be mine? My offenses ceasing, taste for the name increasing. When, oh when, will your mercy shine? When, oh when, will that day be mine? There's nobody like Bhaktivinoda Thakur. His poetry was just so deep. He was manifesting the mood of a fallen soul, presenting himself, putting himself in the position of a fallen soul, and pleading still, even in that fallen condition, for the mercy of Krishna. I related to Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur almost from the first day I joined the temple, when I started to read his poetry. It's just so wonderful. And if we're in that mood, completely and totally dependent on Supreme Lord, totally dependent on Krishna, begging for his mercy, begging, literally begging, with folded hands, please give me your mercy, shower your blessings on me, help me to become a devotee, help me to make this the last sojourn of my material existence. And then chant and be happy. Jai. I've got a couple of minutes left. If anybody has any questions or comments, please, I'd be very happy to hear. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna, everyone. Sorry, Mataji, I'm cutting you short. Thank you very much for this nice class. Sorry, I have to leave. I have a Ekadashi class to attend. So thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Oh, Jai, Haribol, how are
Hare
you?
Krishna. I'm good. How are you, Prabhuji?
Very well, very well. It's great to be back in Africa. It's very nice.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Well, we have been very good. Maybe Mataji knows we have been very good. We're consistent, like going, we chipped in everyone. So thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Jai.
Welcome back, Mataji. Thank you so much, everyone. So I'll talk to you tomorrow. Okay?
Thank
Hare
you for
Krishna.
joining us. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Jai.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, Prabhuji, for today's session. I have missed quite a few sessions, so I just need some clarification about these energies. So Aladini Shakti I know, but what is the difference between Samvit and Sandhini? What are these two energies? I know
Yes,
it was described.
that was like there's a manifestation of Samvit from that. Let me just hold on. It was in that purport. Yeah, Prabhupada is saying here, the absolute personality of Godhead Sri Krishna is the omnipotent form of transcendental existence, knowledge and bliss in full. His internal potency is exhibited first as Sat, or existence, or in other words, as the portion that expands the existence function of the Lord. When the same potency displays full knowledge, it is called Chit or Samvit. So in other words, when the same potency displays full knowledge, it is called Samvit, which expands the transcendental forms of the Lord. Finally, when the same potency plays a pleasure-giving medium, it is known as Hladini, or the transcendental blissful potency. Thus, the Lord manifests his internal potency in three transcendental divisions. Now, if that makes sense to you, I'd really love it if you could explain it to me, because I'd be very grateful.
So I did not understand Sat, but Chit is knowledge.
Yes.
And when the Lord's energy exhibits knowledge, the knowledge is that we are the soul and we are not this body, and also that we are the eternal servants of the Lord. So that knowledge is Chit, and Aladini Shakti is the pleasure-giving potency of the Lord. But Sandini, the Sat, if you can read that paragraph, the two lines again.
The sat is it's explaining elsewhere, not in that particular purport. Prabhupada has explained elsewhere in Chaitanya Charitamrita that the sat is manifesting the idea that Krishna is there eternally. It's not that Krishna is manifested. The potencies appear to be manifested, but Krishna himself, all these potencies reside within him eternally. They're never manifested in the sense that they give birth. They're there eternally. Krishna is manifested eternally. All the spiritual world is there eternally. Even at the destruction of the material world, the spiritual world never ceases to exist.
So that is Sat, which is the
Yes.
Sandini Shakti. And Chit is the knowledge, which is Samvit. And Anand, Alhadini is the pleasure-giving potency.
In other words, in another purport, I was reading up about this because I was trying to understand it myself today. And so every single atom, the purpose of the existence of every single atom, which all contain Krishna, is to give pleasure to the Supreme Lord. So the Hladini Shakti, in the external sense, we're now we're seeking pleasure, but we're seeking pleasure, of course, in the wrong direction. But the Hladini Shakti, it gives pleasure to the Supreme Lord, and it anticipates the pleasure that can be given to the Supreme Lord that is contained in every single atom. So it's Srimati Radharani who puts that into practice and guides the spirit souls, even the Shakis, even the gopis are guided by her because she, as was described in that purport, Krishna and Radha are one, but they manifest in two bodies. Whereas we are very fortunate to have the two bodies of Radha and Krishna within the same body of Mahaprabhu. That's why he's considered to be the most munificent incarnation. That's why it really bothers me when some people from some institutions, they claim that Prabhupada didn't give us the fullest, deepest knowledge, and you have to go somewhere else to get the deepest knowledge from some other guru. It's simply not a fact. If we read Chaitanya Charitamrita, especially the end part of Chaitanya Charitamrita, there's so much depth of knowledge there. To understand about the Hladini Shakti and the Samvit and the Chit, I would advise anybody to look it up in Chaitanya Charitamrita, where everything is explained in great depth there, and nothing is left out. And Prabhupada goes into amazing detail, where Prabhupada says that, like on that morning walk with the devotees in Denver, Colorado, when Prabhupada was asked a question, and he said, "Okay." So he put his cane in the ground. And he said, "Okay," and then he gave the answer. And the devotee said, "Prabhupada, you were hesitating there to produce the answer." Prabhupada said, "Yeah, I had to consult with Krishna." So Prabhupada was consulting with Krishna at every moment in time, at every moment, and that's why he said these books. When I pick up these books and I read them, I don't understand where these words have come from. Myself, I don't understand. What to speak of me? Little old Vidura, how on earth can I understand the depths of this deep, deep, deep knowledge coming from the background that I come from? I can only, glance at the surface and hope to be able to pick up something somewhere along the way. Because we all have our own individual depth of learning, and we all have our own individual needs in terms of the philosophy and how it manifests for us in our heart. So far, these deep topics, I'm still clinging to the surface and hoping that one day it'll somehow or other manifest in my heart and I'll also be able to understand these topics. But to give you an answer, I can only suggest that go deeply into Chaitanya Charitamrita. Everything is in there. I mean, I know it's a postgraduate study, and we should go through Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam first, and then go on to the Chaitanya Charitamrita. But this is why Lord Chaitanya came. This is why the manifest pastimes of Lord Chaitanya are described in Chaitanya Charitamrita for our benefit. Yes, it is. It is. It's not that you missed any of the sessions, but it's that this topic is deep, and needs a lot of churning to get the real knowledge out of the whole thing. I'm sorry that doesn't provide you with the answer that you would expect, but that's as much as I can tell from my little bit of understanding.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Prabhuji. As starters, this is good for me to understand, and hopefully we'll try to get deeper into it. Any other questions or comments from the group? Okay, if there are no questions or comments from the group, may I request somebody to end this session? Dennis Prabhu, are you able to end this session for today?
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you for the auspicious class, Prabhu. Thank you very much, Hare Krishna. Get your requests again.
So we can end this session by thanking Vidura Prabhu and chanting the Mahamantra.
Yes. We chant one round of the Mahamantra.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna,
Krishna,
Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Panchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhu vacha patitanam
Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Hari Hari Bol.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
His Grace Vidura Prabhu ki jai.
Jai.
Hare
Anand
Krishna.
Koti Vaishnava ki jai.
Jai.
Good night,
Hare
everybody.
Krishna. Thank
Hare
you.
Krishna. Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Hari
Krishna.
Bol. Good night.
Welcome
Prabhuji,
back, my
what is
teacher.